Today I'm going to show you how to diagnose and replace a broken clock spring on your Honda or an Acura. Now when I turn the vehicle on, you can see that the airbag light itself stays on solid while all of the other warning lights go out. Now the other thing is the horn doesn't work on this vehicle, as well as the cruise control and any of the other steering controls. So I definitely know that there's something wrong with the clock spring that connects the steering wheel to the body of the vehicle. Now a clock spring basically has a reel of wire inside, and it allows electronics to be mounted to the steering wheel and still be able to turn relative to the body of the vehicle. Now of course, if you break a wire inside of here, we're going to have the symptoms that we see with this vehicle, and the clock spring has to be replaced. Now before working with any airbag system, make sure you disconnect the battery. In order to access the clock spring, we need to remove the steering column cover and the steering wheel. Now underneath the steering column there are 3 Phillips screws that I need to remove. Now I need to peel off the steering wheel cover. Pull this guy off here. Now underneath the steering column there's a yellow connector here, and that's for the airbag in the steering wheel. Now at the top here we have the clock spring connection that connects all of the other steering wheel controls, so I'm just going to remove this. On the side of the airbag here there's a 10mm bolt. Now some vehicles might have a Torx here, but this one's got a 10mm. Just loosen that up. There is a bolt. There's also another 10mm bolt on this side that holds the airbag on. Now I'm going to remove the airbag from the steering wheel and carefully disconnect this connector over here. And there's also one more connector over here for the horn, and remove the airbag assembly. Inside of the steering wheel here we have this 14mm bolt that holds the steering wheel onto the steering shaft. We've also got this connection here that goes to the clock spring that I'm going to disconnect, because we have to remove this entire steering wheel and fish this SRS line through. So now I'm going to remove this 14mm bolt. Probably good if you put the steering lock on. Whew. And then we'll just remove that bolt. Now before we pull off the steering wheel, I'm just going to mark its position so I can get it back in the same exact spot. Next we need to get the steering, which is pressed onto the shaft here, out. So we can just keep pulling it until it pops out. Now with the steering wheel out of the way, we have clear access to the clock spring, and it's held on by 3 Phillips screws, one at the top here and then 2 at the side here, and that will remove this entire assembly with the 2 switches. And then now we can remove this assembly from the steering shaft. Now with the clock spring removed, I'm just going to use a screwdriver to remove it from the turn signal switch assembly. So you have the broken clock spring removed from the vehicle. I'm going to open it up to see what's going on inside. Just going to pry it open over here, and we'll just open this up here. So these 2 points here are where it's supposed to connect to the inside connector inside of here, but it actually broke loose. Probably because the steering wheel was turned freely without the steering shaft to limit it. There's also a lot of grease inside of here for lubrication. In order to reset the clock spring, we have it at its maximum position here, turned to the right. So I'm going to turn it to the left 3 turns, and that should be the center position. To verify that, I'm going to turn it another 3 turns, and then I start to feel resistance. So basically we have about 3 turns each way on this, which is 6 turns. So I'll just reset it back to its center position, and then we'll reinstall it with the steering wheel straight and the front wheels facing straight. That way we can have enough turns to turn the steering wheel without breaking the ribbon cable inside of here. Now I'm going to replace the clock spring onto the turn signal switch assembly. This clicks on like that, and we'll position the clock spring so the steering wheel fits over it. Now I'm going to replace the screws, and then we'll just plug in the clock spring at the top here. Then I'm going to plug in the airbag wire. Now I'm going to reinstall the steering wheel, and then make sure I align the dots in the center of the steering wheel and put it back in the exact same position. Then I'm going to reinstall the 14mm bolt in the center of the steering wheel. Now the airbag wires actually have to run underneath the steering wheel here. Next I'm going to bring in the airbag itself, and I'm going to connect the connection for the horn, and then I'm going to install the airbag and feed this wire down the back of the steering wheel here. Make sure the horn button, and then down underneath here I'm going to make my connection for the airbag. Now I'm going to replace the 10mm bolts for the airbag, and we'll just snug this down. Next I'm going to replace the upper steering wheel cover. Now I'm going to replace the lower steering wheel cover, and then we'll just clip these 2 together. And now I'm just going to replace the 3 screws underneath the steering column. Now I'm going to reconnect the battery. Alright, finally we're going to start the vehicle. And you'll see that the airbag light now goes out, and the horn itself works. So does the cruise control and the audio control. Make sure you follow SpeedCar99 on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and subscribe for more videos just like this one.